make sure OBS is working before we go on in. All right, how's everybody doing tonight? It's time for another episode of Collegiate Exclusive, as we are back, and it's been 9 days since the last time TJ and I were up on your screens, and a certain Collegiate Rocket League event was announced between now and that last episode, and that's what we're starting off the show talking about, because a lot has gone on in those 9 days. But first of all, TJ, man, how you doing?
Doing wonderful. Once again, it's a pleasure to be back. It is episode number 9. We're almost at double digits, which is just awesome that this thing is actually up and running. We appreciate all of you for your support every week. Well, at least now, every week. We've got a really fun episode planned next week as well, which we hopefully will be in person. Fun fact, it'll be the second in-person episode of Collegiate Exclusive. So should have that coming for you next week. But we got a lot to talk about today.
Yeah, that was always in the cards, trying to do LAN episodes when you and I are both traveling. So hopefully it pans out. We'll see what happens there, but we do have a lot to talk about, and Wednesday Night Lights is happening tonight for the first time ever, so we are always up against that time constraint in the back half of the show. So let's jump straight into it. First thoughts. I think everybody read your first thoughts on the CRL format, TJ. That was a great 6-page document, I think it was. So I'm going to drop mine first. I'm going to, first of all, put the format up on screen so you can read the Start GG page. And yeah, so big headlines, a big positive as well, I think, is that League Play is back. And that is something we've been asking for. League Play coming back to CRL after it was 16 teams for the East, 16 teams for the West in previous iterations of Collegiate Rocket League. And now it's 12 teams overall during one semester, which it's kind of bittersweet because we definitely need, in the most competitive season of CRL ever, more slots than just 12 for League Play. So I'm disappointed in that, but I am happy League Play is coming back. And I like the addition of the open 3v3 tournaments as a way of qualifying or attempting to qualify for that second League Play split. So 4 weeks of League Play between the 8 teams that make it through this open qualifier. Then they play their League Play, everybody else plays open 3v3 tournament, and they get points to try and qualify for the closed qualifier, which will be the bottom 4 teams from League Play Split 1 and the top 8 teams in points from the open 3v3 tournaments. Then they play out that closed qualifier, 4 more teams join League Play Split 2, and then you get points by playing in League Play for the Fall Championship. Or no, it's top 4, top 4 from League Play Split 2. Make the Fall Championship. And I know this was a pretty lackluster announcement as well, like not just the format, TJ, but on the actual RLCS broadcast with T-Bates forgetting Winthrop's name in the middle of it. But CRL is officially back, and this is a step up from the previous format. I think we can agree on that.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I know that my 6-page document, which, by the way, is probably the best paper I've written, even though I'm literally in school right now. No, it was a big kind of info dump on everything that I think CRL stands for. League Play is something that I've been vouching for and I've enjoyed spectating and being a part of and watching ever since it very first got introduced into the scene. Fun fact, whenever I actually started casting Collegiate Rocket League, I was on the Ball State League Play streams.
Throwback.
Back in those days around the same time. So it's just, I have a special place in my heart for League Play. So the fact that it's back, I'm very happy. And the fact that I'm here at Concord and that League Play came back, I'm also still happy because it is the top 8 teams. But the other half of my job, the other half of my day-to-day is a lot, not a little, a lot upset about the limitations of top 8. Now, granted, the opens are back. These are how opens should be.
Yeah.
Like I remember, like when King won the open during the last League Play split, like those events should be happening in the opens. Teams like that with and you know, the old King roster is a podcast topic in itself. But old rosters, or not old rosters, new and old rosters in those opens should be going head to head. Like I expect a Syracuse to play a Baylor or a St. Edwards if they don't make League Play. I expect that to be a semifinal. I expect that to be a top 8 match. Those are the games where those teams really get to shine. But we have also been told in private that those will not be streamed, and that right there also really bothers me. Closed qualifier, though, I think is the biggest positive. I think it's the most fair to go bottom 4, top 8 from the opens. Like, that's relegation. That's soccer right there. That's beautiful. That's going to be cinema to watch, which I don't remember if our contacts told us that was streamed or not. I don't believe it is.
Not Sure.
But we'll have to see. We know league play is streamed. We know that is. And the format, for those of you who are confused, we've been told that yes, league play starts at 1 o'clock, but it will be a rotation of all those matchups, and it will be maybe a 1 to 5 o'clock Eastern time stream where it's just a different league match over and over and over again throughout those streams. So things are confusing. There's still a lot that's missing, but I also am a big fan of the open 2v2s being added, and of course the championship. That's my least favorite thing, being only the top 4, which we'll circle back to that because I know you have the prizing set up here for a reason. We can talk about this, Pepic.
Yeah, so, I mean, a decent amount of money invested into it. I think it's still a step down from years previous, which could just be part of the sort of reset that CRL has gone through once the reins were handed from ESL over to Blast when it comes to tournament organization. But this is still good money, and this is still the biggest event by prize money in Collegiate. So that's still a positive there, and will still be a good motivation for players. And just by making the top 4, you net $2,000 in Scholastic awards. So pretty good. I also read through the player eligibility stuff, and there's nothing really of note in the rule set. So I was actually looking for the specific reason of hearing that we might have Justice potentially playing from EU for Fisher, and that actually would be allowed in CRL, according to what I read in player eligibility. It doesn't say, like, explicitly it's okay, but it doesn't say that you can't play from Europe. You just have to be enrolled full-time at a school, so...
There's a lot of statements about the CRL student visas and how those are going to work as well.
Yes.
Again, in passing, at least from here at the Concord facility, we have been told almost 98% of the time that, like, for example, like, my 2 guys should count as NA players, even though they're here from EU. So that's a positive. Now, I don't agree at all with players being allowed to play from EU. Because that is a can of worms that I don't understand why anybody would ever want to open that. Because it's just going to lead to a bunch of virtual students coming in and playing. Like, at least in Valorant, at least in League, like, these students are coming all the way over here and they have to play. And for Rocket League, it's been like that. Why would you change it? I don't get that at all. Granted, we'll see, because again, I know that you're just reading what the eligibility rules state. But they should not be like that, but they still have to clarify. I know that there's been a lot of private tickets and questions going those admins' way, so we'll see what the official statements are.
Yeah, and the eligibility rules and just rule set in general, they were pretty boring with regards to any spicy rules that could shake things up or be controversial. So nothing to read into deeply there, but I also... I think it's worth noting the schedule one more time for those that may be joining us. I'm going to put those back up on the screen. But one thing that really did irk me, and before I do put the dates up on screen, CRL in very typical, I think, Silence and Epic fashion, did not communicate at all with TOs in the scene from what we know.
No third
and
party.
They scheduled the open qualifiers and closed qualifiers over 2 of the major LANs happening this fall, with dates announced as well. The DreamHack Atlanta LAN and Scenic City Invitational both have had their dates announced for, I think, a couple of weeks, if not a month at this point. And I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of them just coming in and steamrolling the people that are trying to prop up the Collegiate Rocket League scene. And so while I think there are a lot of positives to take away from this announcement, there are some pretty rough negatives too that I think need to be addressed at some point. And I mean, notoriously, even on the talent side from what we've heard, communication is not always open. And so I hope that changes. I hope we get more teams involved with league play, and I hope the communication side of CRL changes. The higher-ups need to be talking to tournament organizers in the space because, honestly, they've carried the scene. The semester we didn't have CRL, it wasn't a huge deal because we had other leagues and LANs to play in, and that, I mean, that is something that Psionics and Epic shouldn't take for granted. But here are the dates one more time.
Which I'll kind of help people kind of understand the dates and the lands coming up. So first of all, open qualifiers are September 28th. That is obviously going to be the weekend of the Scenic City Invitational. Luckily, that crew has the facility and the ability to support all of the rosters who are going to be there. But that LAN, it's a big LAN. Like, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Pepik, I believe it's a little more than 16 teams, or is my numbers wrong there?
I believe 20 is the number, yeah.
Yeah, so 20 teams who are all going to be playing these qualifiers. Like, first of all, shout out to the crew at Tennessee Chattanooga for even having the ability to do that.
Yeah.
But that is the premier land. That's the preseason land to kick off the year. You could even argue it's not a preseason land because it's September. Also, guys, I know my mic is quiet because of my lovely mixer is bugging right now, so I apologize. But I'm doing my best to fix that. But no, I don't understand how, like with Scenic City, they've been announced for forever, and I don't understand how that was an issue. Now with DreamHack, obviously I can talk on DreamHack because me and my boy DJ run that event. Our event did take a few weeks late to get announced. If they scheduled it over DreamHack, I would understand. Now last year, on the other hand, we had our thing announced for months, and CRL's still scheduled over it.
Yeah.
Them doing it for the second year in a row without reaching out to anybody from DreamHack or us, that part bothers me. Not the part of them kind of already trying to trample our dates. And Bepic, you know, last year we lost some of our CRL top 12 teams last year because of the CRL announcement. And I have, I can't tell you guys the exact list of who's accepted and who's declined for DreamHack thus far, but I can tell you that we've lost a few teams in the top 32 because of the CRL announcement. It's just ridiculous. It's silly. And I can't release the official date. Actually, yes, I can. It is official. BBB is going to be November 8th. It will be that weekend. And so CRL League play will be going on. So we go back-to-back weekends. We get DreamHack into the closed qual and league play split 2 week 1.
Busy week.
And then the very next weekend, week 2 BBB. So I don't know what do you want us to do, Rocket League? If we're trying to run events for this community and you want to support this community, there's only 3 lands this year. I don't know what you want us to do. It's just silly.
Yeah, and I like BK's point as well to stop calling it league play, because I mean that really isn't a league play. It's not a full league. CRL is so much more than just the top 12, and so I mean I hope they still allow community broadcasts. If that is the case, like Wednesday Night Lights will become open 3v3 streams that night, and the closed qualifier as well. Like if they're not streaming that themselves, that had better be community broadcasts. But that makes it so difficult for people to follow that aren't just inherent to the scene. And that's kind of why we made this podcast. And that's why we tweet like we do. But yeah, a lot of shortcomings with this announcement, including the way it was announced. I go back and watch it if you haven't already. I when you quoted it, TJ, I was like, "There's no way they announced it like that." But that was pretty word for word. So yeah, that's the CRL announcement. We've spent 15 minutes on it. I think we can talk about the rest of the CRL scene. You cool with that, TJ?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to TLDR the conversation, but you kind of already mentioned it. The big part of the CRL announcement that bothered me, and I'm going to be quick, I don't want to waste too much time. Last year, we at least got a video, we at least got new graphics, we at least got general hype being built, and it was on Sunday.
Yeah.
This year, we don't even get to Championship Sunday, and the announcement comes at the end of the broadcast on, correct me, I haven't read my own words in a while. Was it Saturday or Friday night?
It was Friday. It was Friday.
Okay, so not even Saturday. We get the Friday last-second buzzer beater announcement. That part I am quoting from my own words. We get a buzzer beater announcement from the CRL crew, and then they bring up Garrett, which could have made up for things because it was a great plug, but then they forget Winthrop's name.
Yeah.
Like, Winthrop is easily one of the most influential programs in our scene, and they're a Division I program, and they're in the Southeast. Like, this is a school who is so much more than esports, but is also one of the best in the nation at esports. It's them, Cumberland, and then your Northwood. Like, you then go down the list. But when you're talking about the best programs on paper, Maryville, Cumberland, Winthrop, if you cannot remember those 3 names, you don't deserve to tie your name into collegiate esports. And I already talked about it way too long. But anyways, that's why I was so disappointed with T-Bait specifically.
Yeah.
Everybody else gets a pass in my eyes. But anyways, now we can move on.
Yeah, and that sums up how we feel about the CRL announcement, and kind of CRL for the better part of the last year and a half or so. But we can move on to the stuff that actually has been consistent in the Collegiate Rocket League space, and something we're going to start with another kind of headline here, and this is the one big headline of the day because the number 1 ranked St. Clair Saints team went down in Ace last night. It was in Game 5 against Cumberland. A back-and-forth series that was so hype, and this is the sort of stuff that should be seen by the greater public that wants to get into Collegiate Rocket League, because this was a fantastic series. I think all 6 players were playing extremely well. St. Clair, on an individual level, were popping off a bit mechanically, and then Cumberland, as a team, played some of the best Rocket League I've seen out of them. And I think there were some questions about this Cumberland roster and how they would work together coming into the fall, despite a year of experience with one another. So, or a semester of experience with one another. I can't remember how long they've been together. But big win for the Phoenix last night over St. Clair and Nace.
I mean, Cumberland has been on campus for a hot minute. Like, St. Clair only as of recent started getting back into scrims, getting back into the swing of things. But I think the only CRL top 8 schools who have been on campus fully scrimming, it's really just been, I know we have been, I know Cumberland has been, I know West Virginia and Ball State have been. But outside of that, like, these schools from Europe who haven't really been working, whether they were in Europe together or here now in the States, it's starting to pay, or not pay off, it's starting to pay dues on their mind. And you could tell St. Clair Green did get a great start against Winthrop and Nace, and they handled that series very well. It was a 3-1 win.
Yeah.
But going from that to Cumberland and to losing to that team, especially if you're going off of the mentality around this team last year, I gotta imagine it's pretty hard to swallow that pill if you're St. Clair. But who knows? I think Cumberland have been waiting for their moment to shine, and with CRL getting more competitive, this is almost a must-win for them, especially for their stock and the social part of CRL.
And this brings me to a couple of points. One that I see BK's in chat. I already quoted him, actually. And this is something that he brought up, saying that he still thinks that St. Clair is the #1 overall team. And I think that discounts some of the big leagues. Like, in my eyes, when I'm ranking, we could talk more about this later when we do put our top 32 up on screen. I think you have to consider NACE, NECC, and major tournaments outside of CRL with regards to ranking, because these series do matter, and you got to credit the wins here. Cumberland stepped up, played a really good series, and St. Clair were still fighting for the win here. So, I mean, you can't just discount a league that has teams like this playing on a weekly basis or a match just because maybe one team doesn't take it as seriously. At the end of the day, that is also reflected in the power rankings. But at the same time, I have heard rumblings that with Nace removing their prizing, TJ, and this is something that CMOS actually came up on the podcast, on your microphone, and said, is that within Nace, teams are going to be less motivated at the top because there isn't prizing for players this season. So we could see that as a factor here, because maybe St. Clair aren't as motivated because of that. Maybe Cumberland is a result of their rigorous program that we have propped up on this show before. Maybe they're still motivated to win just for the sake of winning.
He brought up a great point, but I didn't think it was going to show this soon. I will say this, prize pooling or not, Maryville specifically, I understand, because EXO did just come back from Worlds. So for them and their losses that they struggle with, which we're going to talk about, fair play. But St. Clair, I think that it is a European-related issue. I think it goes to the Europeans who have only just recently joined CRL. I think a lot of Europeans are looking to join our league because of the prize money.
Yeah.
And NACE is a great framework and great standard for collegiate esports, but them taking away the prize money, it's not going to sit well with those guys who came all the way across the world to play Rocket League and make a little bit of cash. So I can't blame them for not caring about it as much. I will say there is still a land at the end of the year, and getting to go to Orlando, getting to go to the Full Sail campus, those are great experiences, and those are worth playing for alone, in my opinion. But I'm obviously not 2,300 or an RLCS professional, so what do I know, right? But it's a little confusing to see the change of pace. St. Clair has a standard to hold after last year.
Yeah.
Maryville was always close, but they never really crossed the threshold of a consistent championship team. They're right there, don't get me wrong. And we'll talk about power rankings later. But St. Clair are the spring champions. They have to hold themselves to that degree if they want to remain in that conversation. And losing to Cumberland just simply is not a way to do it.
And it's just a good conversation topic on how rankings should be created, and what actually motivates teams to compete in the CRL space. And with us still kind of being on the frontier of it, I think these are good conversations to have on a weekly basis. But that's the big headline, and now we can really jump into results. And we have to watch our time here, just with the show matches starting here in an hour. But let's talk about the NACE Super Conference results, because outside of that, there really weren't any exciting series conclusions in NACE these last 2 weeks. But it did start up last week. St. Clair beat Winthrop 3-1. West Virginia 3-0 Davenport. And this is a series that I think is worth noting, because Davenport and West Virginia had, I think, 9 and 10, actually, my first preseason rankings. But West Virginia, they aren't messing around here. And Davenport being swept week 1, it's week 1, but that is still a notable result, I think.
Yeah, I mean, NACE always will provide some good kind of case studies to worry about or not worry about, depending on who you're a fan of. Coming out of last year, West Virginia has finally decided to stick with the roster of Angel is a graduate assistant. He is now a coach. So it is Tool, it is Matter, which is now Matt, which is also Daunt. And then it is obviously Gyro. So now that West Virginia has a fully 100% invested Gyro, this team is going to be a lot more dangerous. They're going to be a lot more better. They're going to be a lot more competent. I think last year a lot of their big team issues came out of the original roster before Gyro. Even when he did commit to the campus, I think they still had a lot of issues. But also, you're highlighting as well, this is not Davenport Black, guys. It is Davenport Red. So it's a very expected win, but it's still a good win.
Well, shoot, I did think it was the other Davenport when I was looking through results. That's my bad. I'm an idiot sometimes. There are a lot of results to keep up with. So this is why we open up those conversations, and I put out rankings for players to catch me here. So thank you, Byra, for not for letting me know that was wrong. But it's okay, yeah, that is an expected win then, and I'll take it back there. And that does affect my rankings, which now I'm a little mad about. So we'll move on to round 2, and I'll correct those at a later date. But obviously we talked about the Cumberland win in Game 5. Maryville taken to Game 5 by Baylor here, and Ixo was registered or checked in. I forget how it works.
He's back in NA.
And so this is with the full Maryville starting lineup. Baylor trying to reverse sweep and taking them to Game 5, but falling short here. And this, we can maybe give him a pass considering Ixo was just at Worlds. But I more kind of want to spin it in Baylor's favor, doing well to keep up with Maryville here.
Yeah, I mean, Maryville, we know the personality behind Ixo's speed and wave. We know that they like to troll a little bit in CRL. There's no surprise there, but it was a 3-2, was a 4-2. I would imagine that there was maybe an overtime in that Game 3. Regardless of how that series played out, Maryville almost getting reverse swept by obviously 2 of some of the best in RLCS, and then a low SSL who just joined the fray. That's still not a good look for this team. Granted, it's NACE. It's a weekly matchup. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt because they won the first 2 games with no issue, or at least a slight issue in Game 2. It's a little confusing, but it's nothing I'm reading into and saying that Maryville is to worry about. It's more so, okay, maybe Baylor top 15 is a good conversation to have.
Yeah, and we were wondering how Baylor would play with JT as the third alongside Andy and Hoxer. And then another Game 5 on a night of Game 5s in NACE. Bruton Park Christian University and Lubbock Christian taking each other on. And this was nearly a reverse sweep by Lubbock Christian. BPC, and you can't see the scores, unfortunately, but they won the first 2 games, and they were close. Like, I think there was one overtime, one goal game where BPCU score in the final 15 seconds. And then LCU come back with 2 dominant wins, and then force a close Game 5 where Bruton Park are able to just narrowly get it over the line. But man, I don't know. I was worried about Bruton Parker here because LCU looked so good in the back half of this series, just couldn't close it out.
LCU is always a team to be worried about. They have been so consistent in their time in CRL, and they are one of the best gatekeeper teams in the entire nation. Now, granted, Bruton Parker finally bringing Milk to the starting lineup. I think now this is going to be the best Bruton Parker roster we've ever seen. That is Milk, who is fresh off of now a B+ RLCS run, 1 series away from a rank A run. Milk looks good. That run was also with his Bruton Parker teammates as well. So this is a roster that is not only in it for the long haul and collegiate, Collegiate, but is going to be most likely playing RLCS together this year as well. And so that's one of those rosters where if they can actually keep their chemistry building, they're going to be really dangerous. They could become another version of LCU where they're just that consistent that if you catch them in a best of 3, you could drop to them and you could really regret it, as we've seen that happen way too many times. Also, I'm biased to Burton Parker because of Georgia, but I still think that point is worth talking about. I still think it stands, but this right here was probably the most beautiful top 20 CRL sleeper matchup that we could have ever asked for. So a really good one to kick off NACE there.
Yeah, NACE, and the Super Conference is very entertaining, and I love the fact that we're getting these matches on a regular Tuesday night. You can tune in, watch the school streams, and enjoy a ton of Game 5s if you were watching last night. But moving on from NACE, as we'll get more results from that as the season moves along and the Super Conference gives us cool stuff to talk about. But Play Versus we will talk about for a little bit. The PCL started last night as well. They just love going toe-to-toe with NACE, who they were formerly alongside, but I mean, this was more just kind of some rosters, like Vaudable said, some roster debuts last night with Fisher taking on Kaiser, and they were styling on them. It wasn't a particularly close 3-0. I don't think there are any real results of note, but Fisher showed off false in the starting lineup with Adam and Royalis. And then Brock 3-0'd RIT, and this is the Brock lineup that Dart kind of put on everyone's radar with his top 50, with Lev and Soars of note on the roster. So that's a team to keep an eye on there. And PCL, I'll keep scrolling, TJ. So if there's one you want to talk about, definitely jump on it.
I was more so about to go look for the pools to talk about as I was looking in our Discord channel to go find those. I may have you pull those out instead.
Here.
No, you brought up the 2 results that I was going to talk about. What I really wanted to, I hope you can zoom it out for stream, because they really need to see East, I believe it was East 3 was the conference, and I'm going to break it down for everybody as well. So first of all, direct your attention to East 2, right? You have Cumberland, you have Brock, you have maybe some arguments for a team like Maryland or etc. Okay, fair conference for a low registration league, right? Now you look at East 1. Okay, Fisher, Cincinnati, George Mason. Okay, yeah, also makes sense. Bebic, please do me the honors and scroll down to East 3 and 4, because this is where things get really confusing. First of all, don't look at East 3. It's scary. Don't look at it yet. East 4, Akron, and that's it. Like with all due respect to RMU, UCF, and Huntington, with all due respect to those programs, those are not top 48 rosters as of right now. It's possible, but not as of right now. East 3 somehow got Columbia, Syracuse, Kaiser, and Northwood.
Yep.
I am I am appalled at whoever the seating committee is for Play Versus, because this makes no sense. Like, I don't understand how Columbia and Northwood are in the same pool. Well, at least based on preseason rankings. Syracuse and Northwood should not be in the same pool here. It's just, I don't understand how these were seeded, because when you look at number 2 and 4 especially, something just does not add up by any means.
Yeah, and that is really the point I wanted to bring up while talking PCL. Yeah, and I don't know how it was seeded, and you can look at the Central Conference as well. So do the geography if you like, as there's some West Coast. WCTC is in Wisconsin. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, Wisconsin and Missouri are in the same region of the states as well, and so Columbia and I don't know. It doesn't make a ton of sense, but it will provide some really nice rankings results once we do get those matchups. And something I do want to bring up, you said no offense to Huntington, who did take a game off of Akron last night. They were playing without Patty, though, Akron was. And I think it is a result of this. He congratulations to Patty. He aced a 6-burger challenge in 8 minutes. Don't know how he did that. But he also wasn't playing last night. So I'm not going to speculate, but you all can.
Yeah, this is the real CRL preseason ranking win. This is what really matters right here. Patty, unironically, Patty may be a competitive eater. Like, for those of you who have not been following Patty's Twitter, you should. Patty is hilarious in person. Love that guy to death. But this is, I believe, at least since I've known him, I think it's his third or fourth eating challenge that he's done and posted on Twitter. So, you know what? Patty might be Joey Chestnut in disguise. He just might be.
Like I said in replies, stay winning, Patty. Congratulations on that. And yeah, the dropping a game to Huntington was more of just a segue. It didn't matter. Akron were messing around, and they got caught for a game. As Huntington is decent. I don't know if they're top 32. Like their director keeps replying to me and asking if they can be, but regardless, we'll move along to the next segment because NECC is also starting tonight. This is the big week of the season kicking off, and this is a point I want to bring up because I'm annoyed at the fact that their placement tournaments are named after Rocket League cars and not named based on the skill level of the teams playing in these placement tournaments. Because I saw this and you have to go through each one to figure out which ones are actually decent. And I was like, man, why would they do this to me? Why can't it just be like placement tournament? I don't know, like tier 1 or something like that. Like it's not division 1 because that's what they call their main playing division. So that'd cause some confusion. But maybe like tier 1 or placement tournament 1. I don't know. I had to look through, how many is this? 11 different brackets, 9 different brackets to figure out which ones were the decent ones. So that's my gripe. But we can look through the brackets here, TJ.
Yeah, which I want you to go a little slow because, like, they've started and we're going to talk about it in just a second. But I want to say this about NECC in general. In case you are a good enough team to potentially play in Div 1, like an Indiana Tech, I don't know how you know you're going to be in Division 1. Like, there's St. Edwards, there's Leslie, there's Drexel, there's some good teams, there's St. Clair Gold, there's some really good teams in here.
Yeah.
But what I hate about this is that, Bebek, I am almost 90% sure that this is probably for the bottom half of Division 1, like the bottom few spots, or it's going to be for the top of Division 2. Like, I don't see how any of these teams are going to be potentially in Division 1 because from what we've been told behind the scenes, there is a certain amount of teams who have been guaranteed their spots in Division 1. Like me and my Concord guys, for example, we're the only team who actually doesn't have to play in these placement tournaments because we won NECC this past year. But there was no explanation to us as to who else got that type of treatment. So what I hate is that if you're one of these schools, you go 2-0. Like Indiana Tech shouldn't really drop a game, even though as I say that, I don't know if that Indiana versus Indiana Tech game is wrong or not because it says Indiana's up 2-0.
Well, let's investigate.
I'm not sure if it's right or wrong, misreported. I mean, we're going to go off that it's true. This right here could actually be a massive upset if it is correct, which Kami says it is correct. In chat. They're down. Okay, all right, okay, we might need to come back and look at this, Bepic. But anyways, I'll stop complaining about NECC because this is just stupid the way they name the brackets. But we can talk about games now. Why not?
Well, first I wanted to comment on something that you said because I did get a confirmation on how the placement brackets work. And I'm going to read it out loud. I'm not going to put it on screen. So this is the Rocket League title manager that replied to me, shout out, within 12 hours of me asking the question. I didn't expect a response, honestly. So I asked how the placement tournaments were both created and how they affect division placement. And so he tells me, for Division 1, the top 8 teams from the spring were all invited back and accepted, and the other 8 teams come from our normal placement process. It's not in the rule book as to how it works because they don't disclose their full process, and the placement tournament is only one of the factors that they take into effect. The placement brackets are generally made based on rank slash skill level, and the purpose of these is to give us more data when placing these teams into divisions. Going 2-0 or 0-2 in the bracket doesn't guarantee a spot in a certain division, but these matches will be referenced when we go through and make the divisions. And that is how the NECC puts teams in divisions. So there's a committee, I suppose, behind the scenes that takes into account these results and places teams based on that.
So, and I'm glad that everybody's in chat for us to talk about this because this is one of the funniest things next to Play Versus and the way they seeded. So last year for NECC, they had the same explanation, but there was a very clear correlation of this team went 2-0. they're going to be in Division 2. They're going to be in Division 3. The only roster last year that raised a lot of eyebrows was King University, who got wrongly placed in Division 3, even though they were in Division 2 last year, went 2-0 in placement tournaments, and then got placed in Division 3. That was the only roster who there was an issue. But now, if we want to, Bevy, we can pull up these matchups.
Yep.
Because now we don't have too much time to go through all of them. But, for example, this one right here, St. Edwards versus Huntington or Kennesaw B. If I am an NECC seeder and I'm trying to figure out if St. Edwards is a Division 1 level school, how does them playing a random team who I have not heard of before. I'm sorry to that school. I'm so sorry. And then versus a team of low SSLs to 2K players. How does that give, like, if I'm St. Edwards and I'm the coach or director over there, I think I'm almost guaranteeing we're in Division 2 because of this bracket alone. Like, I feel like some teams are already written out. Like, Indiana Tech beating Indiana and Cleveland State, they're in the same boat. I feel like they're already written out. Whereas even if they play their best, they're going to get stuck in Division 2. It's just, again, it's so confusing to me.
Mm-hmm. And that, I guess, is why they have kind of the scapegoat of saying that this isn't the only factor that they use to place teams. And so I would assume they would use the skill of St. Edwards and the actual knowledge of their rank and ability in the competitive Rocket League space to place them Division 1. But that's something we have to find out. That's something we have to find out after the fact. So, I mean, I don't really have much to say on their process. You know, I mean, I'm usually pretty critical of anybody that tries to seed or do rankings, including myself, because, I mean, I had the mistake of thinking Davenport's A team had lost when it was the B team that had lost, and that sort of thing happens, and so that's why I hope that there is a large committee of people that are paying attention to everything, and they have their process down pat, and I think we can critique that when we actually see where teams land.
Yeah, the big thing about the wording of the statement that concerns me is the placement brackets are generally made based on rank/skill level. The purpose of these is to give us more data when placing teams.
Yeah.
Like Play Versus, like I think for Play Versus, it is almost obvious that they decided to make their brackets off of player rank, but they don't look into SSL. They don't look at 2300 versus 1900 or even like 1840 versus 2K. Like I don't think that Play Versus looks at that. NECC after last semester, I would expect them to be better because I respect that tournament organization team and what they did last year, other than King University, obviously. But hearing that as a official rulebook written statement just concerns me just a little bit. And so again, like we'll see what the final placements are, but I'm already expecting to have to make a statement or at least do a little statistical analysis of the divisions once they come out.
And for those asking, I mean, Fennec is obviously the best one, the best division of the placement tournaments. Dominus, from what I assume, is the second best because you've got schools like Northeastern, Robert Morris, Texas A&M, Oklahoma that were around the divisions 3 and 4 last season. And then after that, I have no idea. Like Daytona State, which this is Daytona State without Ian, if memory serves. I believe he is gone. We talked about that. Yeah, Knuckles, Smooth, and Sullis. And so it's not the Daytona State that won the Division 2 East Conference last season. So I assume that's why they're in a placement tournament that's maybe third from the top. But yeah, I generally don't know. And that's why I hate the using car names to name your placement tournaments for the NECC. But you know, we can see where this goes. It's a developing story as the games are actually playing right now. And yeah, if you want to watch the Indiana Tech series, it is being streamed by Indiana Tech, IND Tech Esports on Twitch. So go
it's
go
in
for
overtime.
It. It's
It's in overtime game 3. I may or may not be watching it on the side here. Indiana is up 2-0 in the series, but Indiana Tech is currently trying to reverse sweep, but they're in a game 3 overtime right now. So we'll keep a very close eye on that because if Indiana Tech loses that, not only is that a big power rankings loss, but that is also probably what's going to sell them out of Division 1.
Yeah.
If we're being honest. So we'll keep an eye on that one for you, but we'll keep the show going.
Then we can run through the next couple of results. I'm just going to run through them. Just looking at the overview of these next couple of results, and then we can pick out one to talk about. But this is from SEL tier assignment, which is all best of threes this week. So take this with a grain of salt. But some results worth noting in the regional space. UTK Orange, Joe Bro, of course, in now for Agonize with JGZ and Zach. They 2-1 Cumberland Academy, which is one of those teams that I think a lot of us have had our eyes on for being a top 48 roster with potential in the scene. So that's a best of 3 loss for them. Then Kennesaw State A won in game 3 overtime against Huntingdon. So something to keep an eye on, I think, with regards to Huntingdon. That's more of a propping them up than talking about Kennesaw State A with Kronovi and TNT playing with Dillon in the SEL in a best of 3. But they do end up winning. Then James Madison lose to UT Dallas in a best of 3. And they win game 1 and then lose the next 2 games on an aggregate of 11-3. So that's worth noting as well. And then UTK Orange 2-1 Florida Southern, another potential top 48 roster. So UTK Orange doing fairly well. And then this is in the C3 Esports League, which is North and South Carolina. UNC Charlotte go to game 5 and win against Winthrop's Academy team. And those are the results that you can comment on if you wish, TJ.
I mean, UNC beating Winthrop Academy, I actually think that's a pretty normal result, so I'll start there.
In game 5.
Yeah, okay, yes, but I'm pretty high on Winthrop after their Academy roster CCS performance. Like, that roster, I actually really respect what they're building over there. Winthrop is also... I mean, if you watch their social media, you can tell they are extremely serious about their academy program. In terms of the amount of coaching, in terms of the amount of required hours, the players they recruit, that is easily one of the best academy programs in the entire nation. I think that Winthrop Academy roster at their peak could mess around and find themselves in a top 64, top 48 spot in a CRL, or in an open, maybe even top 32. That might be me being a little egregious, but we'll see. Now, the only other result that I want to talk about, it was I'm trying to remember now, the Cumberland Academy game. First of all, UTK winning both those games, those are big for UTK. If they keep that up going into next week's games, they will be in Division 1, and they would deserve it if they get those wins. But I will say this as well. When it comes to Cumberland Academy, I made this point on the last broadcast, or on the last podcast. Players who talk so much on social media and cannot back it up, especially against an in-state rival. I hate to be that guy, but this is a result that was coming. And I hate to be that guy. It is a best of 3. I know that team is better on paper by a mile. I know they are. And I'm willing to give Hotshot and the boys his flowers there. But that is just a result it can't happen. You're a scholarship academy program and one of the most competitive programs in the nation against a makeshift Tennessee roster that is full rank B. It's just not a loss you should have. So that's the only result I look at, and I'm actually concerned. All the other best of 3s, I'm willing to let slide. Also, Indiana Tech just won game 3, so it is now 2-1 in that series. So, again, keeping an eye on that for you. But that's my biggest point I want to make about SEL.
Yeah, I mean, talking about matches against in-state rivals that you should not be losing. I mean, I don't put too much stock in a best of 3s in the tier assignment format. But if they can't back it up in the best of 5s, then I will look back on that best of 3 and think, okay, what is that a sign of? So that is Cumberland Academy, and those are regional results, CCS results, technically national, but I put this in the regional section, which is still CRL results. A couple series worth noting, really only 2 that I saw in all of CCS. Akron Gold goes to game 5 against Northern Illinois. And I don't know if it's just Akron Gold messing around, which they do tend to do a little bit of at the start of the season, but they go to game 5 against Northern Illinois and win. And then Texas A&M lose in game 5 to Mississippi State. And I think with regards to top 48 rosters or potential top 48 rosters like Texas A&M is, I think these are significant results.
First off, shout out Brian and Molly. I have played those 2 players both online and offline in the last year. That Mississippi State roster's fun. Don't get me wrong. That's like your random Southeastern top 32, top 64 sleeper team. Like
Yeah.
when you talk about CCS and you talk about the Southeast of Rocket League specifically, like they're up there. They have some upset wins. In the SEC, they always find a way to get some upset and funny wins. But against that Texas A&M roster, I am quite surprised. So unfortunately, I'm expecting that roster to not be power ranked anytime soon. I forget what Texas A&M's roster is like for the rest of the year. But hey, it opens the doors for Mississippi State. Funny enough, out of all the results that we've talked about on this podcast,
Yeah.
that one's top 3 most surprising for me. Out of all the teams and the skill levels, that one definitely caught me off guard.
Yeah, Karsune Miku said in CCS chat, we may have done a bit of trolling last night. So they know they let one slip. So that's CCS right now. Conference play is underway, and we'll keep an eye on it going forward. But let's see. Next up in the run of show is a reminder. We've touched on it already because we're both going to be at this LAN next weekend, the Scenic City Invitational, and probably recording a podcast episode next weekend. But this is a reminder that the first major LAN of the fall is happening next weekend. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Saturday and Sunday are happening in the Chattanooga Convention Center with a crowd as well, which is absolutely hype. And we've been helping them get kind of set up behind the scenes, TJ, and this should shape up to be a quality LAN.
Yeah, we have been deeply involved with this group. First of all, big shout out to the administrative team, which is Nutty and McMaster.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys have been really incredible making this whole thing happen. Also to the UTC admin who have been able to make this happen at a Comic-Con, and also it's with a crowd, and I believe we have a stage as well.
Yeah.
We are thrilled to go to Chattanooga. Like, me and the guys have been talking about it nonstop. We are really thrilled. That's also my debut on LAN with the guys. We're gonna be geeking, that's for sure. But we're gonna have a lot of fun. We're looking forward to it.
Well, LAN coaching hits different. I can assure you that from the one LAN that I was a coach at, and I got my fist pump GIF that I use as my Twitch notifications now. So it hits different, and I mean another LAN that should have a lot of people excited. TJ, you're quite familiar with. Apparently, I hear the DreamHack Atlanta invites have gone out.
Yeah, we have a very long list of teams. We're going to have 16 Rocket League teams in Atlanta in just about a month and a half. First off, it is me and DJ's second DreamHack Collegiate Invitational in Atlanta. We are thrilled to be presenting that. After everybody's love on the very first one, we were able to actually bring another event with a little bit more support from DreamHack themselves this year as well, because they believe in what they heard from everybody last year. So thank you all for your consistent love of this scene and what we do. Also, VOD 16, not 60. We cannot support 60 teams. That is way too much. 16 teams. I'll make sure I get it right. Yes, and it's on there in the tweet as well. And we're going to have Valorant going on. And all I'm going to say is this. When it comes to our invite list, Rocket League, there's been a few cancellations here and there because there's 16 teams. There's a lot of applications that we've gone and sorted through. So we're going to have good competition. It's just a matter of who. Valorant, we had about 15 top-level teams apply. Out of the 8 that we have invited thus far, the first 7 have already accepted.
All right.
So Valorant will be a banger. Valorant will be stacked. It will most likely be the most talented collegiate Valorant LAN of the entire year. And yes, I'm talking even better than NACE at the end of the year. That right there is really crazy. It's the first time that I have ever ran a LAN and almost gotten 100% invite acceptance. So God bless Collegiate Valorant, because we are very excited to welcome those teams to Atlanta. But yeah, I mean, look, you're going to see me there. You're going to see Bepic there. You may see a certain other tall and handsome CRL caster there, which we're going to have announcements coming soon. But we're all excited to bring it to you this year.
And that's not the only other LAN that's going on soon. In 3 days' time, we talked about the Beltway Boost online qualifiers, which is an open tournament feeding into a couple of LANs. But we were past the open qualifiers, and we are now into the LAN portion, where this is happening in the DMV area. And this is the LAN for the Last Chance qualifier, which features a couple of CRL rosters, actually. St. Edwards and Maryland. They're facing off for that last spot in the main Beltway Boost LAN. So, you got any predictions for this one, TJ? Are you brave enough to lay down some predictions for this bracket?
Well, I will say this. The LCQ will happen this Saturday. So I am assuming that these three rosters have already 100% committed to showing up. Last qualifier, the teams changed like about 24 hours before. So I don't know if this is the final LCQ bracket or not. But let's just say 100% that it is. I will say this. Nolly will never ever break a sweat in CRL because of his RLCS history. It's the same way with all the RLCS players in CRL. They're never going to break a sweat over these games. They're going to have fun, but they are going to make sure they play to the best of their ability. I believe that Nolly could most likely 1v3. I believe him and Waiter, or wow, not Waiter, him and Wellis. I'm getting Maryland confused. I believe that him and Wellis could maybe even 2v3, no matter how bad or nervous Tater plays. I think St. Edward should walk out of that LCQ with absolutely no problem. And I'm actually excited for them to do so, because if St. Edwards makes it out of there, they will be at LAN. Old Miss is going to be there with Cosmic still. Old Miss is still bringing Cosmic out, despite him not being involved with the program. So Old Miss will be Lunar, Cosmic, and Stealth at LAN. St. Edwards will be there at LAN. I'm not sure if the other rank A team is going to be there. I do know, unfortunately, that me and the Concord boys will be playing right here from our lab because we are not able to make the trip. It's a financial thing for us, so we can't really make it happen. But if all three of those teams go to LAN, there's going to be some clips. There's going to be some highlights. We're talking about, I would love to see Nolly and Lunar get into it on LAN. That'd be awesome. That'd be a dream situation, but we'll see.
That is something I didn't even think about. The personalities clashing at the big lands that we're getting. And I mean, another land that speaking of, I asked you for predictions here. I'm assuming St. Edwards is a safe bet all around with all pundits that want opinions on this. But I do want to talk about a land that is happening this weekend, actually. The Power Esports Conference preseason land up at Syracuse. And I think this one is worth talking about and predicting because it's got 3 of the top, let's see, where did I have Syracuse? Top 25 rosters in CRL competing on LAN at Syracuse. And that Syracuse-Michigan State matchup is also an official PEC match. So you have any predictions you want to lay down and talking about the Power Esports kind of kickoff LAN?
Well, remind me, these are both going to be individual matchups, or is there another tournament on top of this as well?
So the tournament is the winners of these matches will play, but only one of the matches is an official PEC series.
Okay, I will say this. I think that Boise State gets an easy 3-0. That's the easiest one to predict. But then my next point will be whoever wins the Syracuse-Michigan State matchup, I think that they win in 4. Or sorry, is it a best of 7 or is it best of 5?
I actually can't remember what the finals is.
Okay. They're going to win 3-1 or they're going to win 4-1 in the final against Boise State. That is my hot take, is that Boise State struggles. I think no matter what, Syracuse and Michigan State should be the upset pick. Now, granted, I've been a big hater of the Boise State Rocket League side of things. I'm not afraid to admit, me and Doc have had a really good laugh about it together. That roster's talented. I believe in the momentum that Michigan State and Syracuse bring. Now, let's talk about that Syracuse-Michigan State matchup. It is a best of 5 for PEC, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Oh man, my heart wanted to go Syracuse in 5, but I don't see Drewy failing. I just don't see it.
All right.
The new starting roster for Michigan State, it's confirmed as Drewy, Knock, and is it Moorview?
I don't know what the starting lineup is.
We don't know yet?
Okay. I've got Wednesday Night Lights coming up tonight. I'm going to be finding out live who the starting 3 is. I haven't asked. I was just like, you guys are playing on my stream tonight. Show up. I trust you guys to be the starting lineup.
Well, give me if it's best of 5, give me Michigan State 3-2. Then give me them 4-2 over Boise.
All right. Well, I will be here at this LAN. By the way, for those curious, I kind of hinted at the special guest thing last week, but it's announced today. I'll be a guest analyst at the LAN for their pregame show. So excited about that. If any of you are in Syracuse for the weekend, I will see you there. But I don't know. I think the pressure that's of playing on your home facility will probably get to Syracuse a little bit if I were to guess. So Michigan State, I think they end up winning as well. I think I agree with you there. Boise State should have no issues with Nebraska, but I think Boise State should win. I can't imagine what the conversation you have with Doc is about hating Boise State. It's like, I think your team sucks, and you both go, ha 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 ha. And no, I don't know if I agree with that. I think Boise State's, and I've heard this from a player or two as well, that Boise State are back to grinding. They're taking the season seriously, so I think they win the kickoff LAN.
I'd love to see it. Don't get me wrong. I'm a Western CRL hater. I got to be honest. I can't lie.
Some things never change.
But no, I mean, look, we'll talk about power rankings. I have Boise State top 10. All right, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I have Boise State top 10. I do believe that yes, they should. But on LAN, I have not seen that roster play to the degree that they should have. And nobody in chat mentioned CECC in 2023. That does not count. That does not count as an impressive LAN weekend. It does not. The competition was just not there. Now, outside of that, if there's another result you want to throw at me, I'm all for it. But no, I think in the new age of CRL, I think this Michigan State roster's got a lot of potential. And I think it's funny because I know you were going to go Boise State. So, yeah. No, I'm still going to stick with it. I think I'm going with Michigan State still. But it should be a great series. I hope it goes 7.
Yeah, it's going to be a great event all around. Good way to kick off the season with a little mini LAN. But real quick, and this is thanks to chat updating us on the Indiana Tech Indiana series. I'm going to put the stream up. No audio or anything like that. But it's looking like Indiana Tech may have recovered. I don't know what on earth happened for those first 2 games, but yeah, I guess they did lock in because they've more than likely, if a 3-0 with 100 seconds left holds, which it should if you're a top 20 team, I think they locked in and reverse swept here.
I mean, this is about as any CC placement as it gets. We see this type of result in the SCL, best of 3s as well. It's just these random midday games-ish for Indiana Tech, and just now showing up and just getting back to their flow. As we say that, Indiana will find a goal, but I think the series is done and dusted. Indiana Tech, it's a scary series, but if they come out of this with a 3-1 or a 4-1, I don't think we're all too concerned.
Well, we will keep you all posted on what does end up happening there, but we do have to move along as time in episode 9 of this episode dwindles. We have some accolades to give out, and this is our weekly little awards segment, which I know some players have put in their Discord bios for sure before, so it for sure means something to everyone out there that receives a CEP Player or Team of the Week award. And I'm going to start with mine, because this has to do with our opening headline, outside of CRL, actually. My player of the week is Nightya, and I actually have the stats to back this up. In the Cumberland win over St. Clair, Nightya had the most goals per game against the Saints, and stuck in a couple of nice assists in there as well. Was the only player to average a goal per game in that series. So shout out to Nightya, who I think at times has been the weak link for Cumberland and has been criticized as such, but he stepped up big time against St. Clair, and he had maybe one moment that he was caught out in defense that I noticed and commented on, and then I immediately felt bad afterwards because he played such a great series outside of maybe giving up 1 or 2 transition goals. So well done, Nightya. Congratulations, you're my player of the week. And TJ, if you want to go through yours, go for it.
Sure. I'll also add on about Nightya real quick. He's been the receiving end of a lot of jokes about Cumberland, so if he's playing good, that roster's dangerous. And if Nex is mechanically playing the way he's always been, then they become even more dangerous. They're going to start freestyling on teams, so exciting there. Now, my player of the week. For the second week in a row, I'm going JT on Baylor. And I'm granted, yes, they lost to Maryville, but my original JT pick in episode 8 was, can he show up against these high-level teams? Now he is my player of the week again because he showed up. He went and almost got or was it a reverse sweep attempt on Maryville?
Yes,
or did
they forced game 5 after going down 0-2.
So that's enough for me to be impressed. That's enough for me to say, okay, with JT, Baylor is unironically going to be a threat to league play. And I think that teams have to watch out for them in St. Edwards because now they have their 2/3 rosters, but they are still dangerous. They are still RLCS talents, and they're going to prove it to you. And they're definitely making some teams tremble in their boots a little bit, depending on how qualifiers get seeded as well. So that's why JT is my back-to-back player of the week. I'm excited to see where his career goes.
My team of the week is Baylor as well. well for similar reasons, for the maybe turmoil they were going through trying to put together that full like top tier roster, and then having to use a player that's just been at Baylor and apparently biding his time to play with Andy and Hoxer. He planned ahead there, and to have that kind of result against Maryville, not quite getting the win, but showing that you're competitive, I think can change the conversation around them. So I'm happy for Baylor. They're my team of the week. And then it was your team of the week, TJ.
My team of the week is Bruton Parker University. Again, Georgia Glaze, I know. Let me hear it in chat, whatever. No, I have to go with Bruton Parker. This is a roster that left so much to be desired last year. They finally take Antics out, who was on low hours, which is fair to him. Then they bring Milk in, who's been grinding his butt off every living day he's been with that roster. And they win in Game 5 against LCU. We may have a new gatekeeper team in the mix of things. So Bruton Parker's my team of the week.
All right, fair enough. They closed it out against LCU. That's tough to do sometimes. That's a sneaky good team. But let's talk power rankings. That's what everyone's actually here for. And here we go with the top 32. This is what we stuck with after top 40. I think was deemed a bit too difficult with the lack of results so far this season. So TJ's list is on the right. My list is on the left. And I do have to preface, I dropped Davenport my rankings because I'm an idiot, and I thought that was their result in NACE. I got my wires crossed there, so they're probably a little bit low, and that's the only correction that I'm willing to issue. As I bumped Concord up to number 1. We all knew TJ was going to have them at number 1 after St. Clair lost, but I think with EXO coming back from Worlds, doing all of that traveling, and from what I know Concord has been, what kind of work they've been putting in for the start of the season, I put them at number 1, and we'll see if that does change as Maryville really gets their fall season going.
There is going to be a lot of debates on Twitter when I post my list out. I will say this as well. I also was a victim of the Davenport miscue. I didn't catch it until about 5 minutes before you brought it up on stream, and I couldn't really fill it in time. So I think Davenport, I'm still going to say I think Davenport might, on my list, they may be number 10. They may be number 11. Like, they're not going to go up that many spots in my eyes, but they will be slightly changed. So I will say this, they're still in the right area. It's just a matter of how high do you value Baylor and OC, who we haven't seen a lot from, versus Ole Miss Boise State, who we've seen also semi-decent amounts of. Where me and you, I think, have the biggest discrepancy is this Cumberland roster. Don't get me wrong. Win over St. Clair is beautiful, but after how, I don't want to say abysmal, but after how disappointing last season went, I'm not sure if I can agree to put them as a top 3 program. I think that, in my opinion, it's a little too early to be jumping that far. That's why I kept St. Clair at 3. It's also why I kept Maryville up at 2, just like you. The only team that I brought into the mix that I think people are going to debate me on is Winthrop at 4. But based on what I've seen in scrims, they look just so dang good. Northwood being 6 on your list and 5 on mine, I think that's going to get a lot of people riled up too.
Yeah, I mean, we just haven't seen anything from Northwood yet, and so my logic of thinking with that middle section, the 3 through 7, is St. Clair, I don't feel like can drop below top 4. I don't think that's the case after a Game 5 loss. But at the same time, I wanted to bump Cumberland up for posting that sort of win. And putting them below St. Clair, like a spot or 2 after they just beat them, feels weird. So I put them at number 3. And we'll see if things course correct after next week, how Cumberland does perform in their next week's match. And then Akron over Northwood, that's from CECC basically. Like, we haven't really seen the two teams play yet at full strength, and Northwood at all, if I can remember properly. So Akron has a head-to-head Northwood, and I think CECC is a good place to have that head-to-head. So I've got them above, and then Winthrop losing 3-1 after dropping 3 games in a row to St. Clair, where St. Clair looked a pretty much the better team. Like, Winthrop looked pretty good, but I think St. Clair was obviously the better team in that series, so I dropped them down a little bit because of that. And that's my logic for the top 7.
Yeah, we have some hot takes. Mine is a little more scrim bias. Yours is a little more recent results bias. So I think it balances out to a decent degree. Going down our list, our our 9 through 16 is pretty dang similar.
Yeah.
We both maybe slightly veer off when it comes to KSU, Michigan State, Indiana Tech, and ETSU, but I think there's a lot of really great arguments you can have with the scene about those 4 teams.
And I think we would probably lose all of our time left in this podcast if we opened up any of those debates, because honestly, right now for me, 15 through 26, honestly, maybe 27 if Wichita State continues to improve. That's like wide open for me, and I think that will be pretty interchangeable as the season goes along. Michigan State, though, I believe in the most out of all those teams at the moment, and they can prove it this weekend if they are able to do what you think they might at the PEC preseason showdown. But yeah, I mean, we're pretty steadfast together. That's kind of how the results have been so far. I might have overcorrected. I had Columbia at 11 last week or 2 weeks ago whenever we put those results out, and they lost Indiana Tech in what was pretty devastating fashion. I mean, they looked really flat in the last 4 games of that series, which they dropped consecutively to Indiana Tech. And so I dropped them well below, but I think we'll see some course correction there if Columbia also continue to improve.
I mean, Columbia's a hard roster to rank because the sleeper acquisition of Rhyolite, I really want to hype up, but he just hasn't converted on field as he did last year with Radford. It hasn't been the same player yet. Granted, who knows how the summer was? Who knows what's going on the personal side of things? I love Rhyolite. I really hope that he can get his career back on track with that roster. I also love Gusky. That's been one of my long-time friends in this scene. Really love that guy to death. I think they're going to be just fine. So no concerns there. St. Clair Gold is another team who's left a lot compared to last year. Compared to this year, there's no comparing the two rosters. There's a lot they need to fix going into CRL quals, going into the opens. They're going to probably be one of the most dangerous rosters in the opens, but they have a long way to go right now. I think a lot of people as well will argue with us on Akron Gold being top 20. But this is a roster that's simply grinded it out.
Yep.
And we also disagree semi in terms of the Bruton, Parker, Fisher, St. Edwards range of things. Not extremely, just give or take a few spots. I think the biggest hot take rosters in the back 10, the back 10, I think a lot of people would debate you on Illinois State. I think a lot of people would debate me and you on Syracuse. And then on my list, I think people would debate me pretty dang heavily on San Diego State and Leslie.
Yeah, I had San Diego State in my top 32, and then I saw them lose to Charlotte and almost lose to Maryland as well, I believe, was their opponent in that series on my stream. So I dropped them out, and I probably could have had Charlotte as well in the top 32. But Illinois State, and we got this from Dart, actually, this intel, the fact that their lineup minus Cosmic is basically the same as what we've seen the last couple of years with No Mansion, Sith, and CG. And they're playing CRL, apparently, despite the program kind of getting dropped there. They're still competing in CRL. I still think that's a good team, and we'll kind of get a good idea of how much they're actually grinding the game to play CRL once the opens start. But I figured that's a good enough resume in the past to put in my top 32. And WCTC was kind of a talking point pick because they've been on the up and up. They've been grinding. They have won some pretty good show matches on my stream, and they're playing San Diego State tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern. So I figured that was a good time for them and SDSU to prove themselves.
I would almost guarantee that those schools will see their results in our next power rankings based pretty heavily off that show match because we have nothing else to go off of. But those two rosters, I think, on paper are pretty dang close. We talked about this already, and I've talked with Gio about it in DMs privately as well. WCTC, similar to Cumberland B, they love to talk on Twitter. They love to talk that mess. San Diego State, a roster that's been mostly silent. ASAP is probably one of the most humble players on Twitter in our scene. So we'll see how they combine. I've talked with 5 stars a lot in DMs too. I know both these rosters have been grinding.
Yep.
I love all 6 of those players. We'll be watching that series. I will definitely be watching that series glued to the screen.
I've got no choice, so I will definitely be watching that as well. But yeah, those are our rankings, and I am still annoyed at the Davenport screw up that I had, but I'd probably have them still top 10, which is where I stuck them last time. So that's
the fire.
Yeah, fuel to the fire, exactly. And I'll get told off for it and then get right back to power ranking for the next one because I'm really loving the season so far and how it's developing with the community and the conversations that we've been having, and I look forward to that getting even better after our next big LAN this next weekend. Not this coming weekend. PEC will be a nice starter, a little appetizer, but Scenic City will be the first big LAN, and then we've got the first CRL Open that weekend, plus NECC, NACE, Playfly, and I don't think ECAC will have started, or maybe it'll just started that week. So that'll all be fully underway. We'll have so much to talk about, and we got one more topic to discuss as Sean Byrne put out a good little numbers tracker. We were tracking registration numbers, TJ, and I believe these are player counts for the big esports conferences, and across the board, everything is down, and it kind of cuts off for play versus, but you get the idea with the trend for each of these leagues.
Yeah, I will say this. First of all, for those of you who do not know Sean Byrne, that is the director of esports at St. Clair College, very influential member of our scene. Fantasy football member of mine as well. Love that guy to death. But let's talk about the politics at hand here. It is pretty concerning to see the drops in a lot of these games. Now, granted, some can be explained. Like looking at League of Legends in North America, looking at Overwatch 2 versus Marvel Rivals, I can see the reasoning why some of these have dropped. Now, Rocket League and Valorant dropping, the only politics that I can think of that really matter this year that I know a lot of us are dealing with is the budget freeze on a lot of institutions across the nation.
Yep.
There's a big like budget freeze on non-essential programs at universities, and even under athletics, esports falls under that category 9 times out of 10. Now, granted, it depends on how your school is ran. For some, if you're in athletics, you're good. If some or others, you're not safe. For us, we're actually under the university, like the highest board. We're under the dean. So for us, we are deemed non-essential, but we kind of are able to work our way around some legalities. Every program's different, but that's why I think these numbers dropped. But like Valorant, for example, in ECAC going from 240 to 189, like 426 to 371. Like, yes, those are player counts, but those are still pretty big margins when you're counting the teams.
Yeah, and do we know for sure if it is player counts? Because 154 Valorant is still, I mean, that's not a huge number of teams, and I would expect NACE to have a lot more. I was just looking at the trends.
I'm pretty sure it has to be, because I don't think there's 400 Rocket League signups.
Oh, it's
in
team counts.
NECC.
So it says VOD.
Oh, is it team?
Wow,
counts?
NECC.
Okay.
I see. I saw the NECC and I was like, that has to be players. But
that makes it immensely worse.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let me rephrase my point then. Seeing the drops in team numbers, that is now multiple university, probably secondary and tertiary teams who are getting cut. I think that right there, alongside the budget freeze, is what's causing these changes. Which for our auditory listeners, I'll kind of give you some of the percentages. Let's talk about Rocket League.
Yeah.
In NACE, they're dealing with a 16% drop-off. In NECC, they're dealing with a 12% drop-off.
From last year as well.
Yes, sorry, from last year. And then for ECAC, it's a 8% drop off. And then I can't see the Playfly number, Bepic. You might want to.
Yeah, the 19% drop off. It's rounds up to 20%. So pretty significant.
Which play versus, no shocker there. That league's gone through a lot of big admin changes. I could see why that happened. But ECAC, NECC, and NACE all struggling together, that is extremely uncommon.
And that fits with the greater conversation of where collegiate esports as a whole is right now. It's something we've been covering in the Scholastic Minute since like June, when we stopped really covering all of the Rocket League results and branching out a bit more into Scholastic. So it's something to keep an eye on over the next couple of years, and why I think consolidation is absolutely coming. And I mean, this is kind of apples to oranges being a regional league, but if you compare the SEL's numbers year over year, we're down as well. We've had a lot of clubs that previously were able to compete just not be able to find the funding anymore, because their funds are just better off in these big leagues where they can get more bang for their buck when it comes to games per dollar spent. And so that's just the way it is right now with collegiate esports. And we're running down on time for the podcast, TJ. So I think we should start getting those final words in. If you want to if you want to sum up the final points, I want to pull up the NECC results one last time for us to have one last gander.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I think I've gotten all my rants out of the way. Power rankings at all levels being this hard is so good for our scene because it just makes these events that much more interesting. We really appreciate all of you guys who are interacting with us, whether it's in Twitch chat like Source just did, or whether it is on Twitter as well. We hope that our rankings give you guys something to pin up on your walls and say, let's go after it. But we also hope that people understand that it's really just us who are doing these rankings next to Dart and Colleague. So there's not a lot of people who are following the scene like us. So to see this many people talking about it, it means a lot. And it takes all that work that me and Bebic put in, and it puts it in perspective. So we really appreciate you guys and also tuning in to tonight's show as well.
Yeah, and Riley even DM'd me after I put Columbia that low, and he was telling me off for it, but like in a respectful way, and I appreciate that. Like I appreciate the fact that players see value in the rankings we put out and the conversations we have about the teams and the players and the competitions, and actually want to talk with us about it. So keep that up, please. But let's look at the results right now. Poor Huntington, another Game 5 loss to KSU. That's a rivalry.
2 semesters in a row.
Yeah, it's essentially. And let's see, Leslie Black is down 2-1 to St. Clair Saints. Gold. And this is, I mean, pretty good for Leslie.
They're so back.
It's pretty good result for both teams. If Saints win and if Leslie keep it close. Drexel lose to, is this Southern Miss? Warriors gold. Actually not sure who this is.
Let's find out. I don't think it's Southern Miss because they are the Golden Eagles, so I don't know whose Warriors would be. Of course it's not gonna load. Okay, I don't recognize any of those names, Bepic. I gotta be honest. I did not recognize any of those gamer tags. You just got flashbanged on stream.
Yeah.
I didn't recognize any of those players, so that's a bad loss.
All right, we will not be looking at any more NECC results until this page reloads. League OS was having some difficulties during our SCL tier assignment, and so I can only imagine the traffic that they're getting right now with NECC going on. But okay, one last look before we do conclude the podcast. UTK, guys, that's a winnable series right there.
Yeah, no way.
AFF, and yeah, South Carolina 3-2 over KSU Premier. And we will be looking at these results next week as well. I'm not going to click on the game-to-game results because I don't want League OS to freak out again like it just did. But wow, yeah, that's pretty big. And I mean, for these big teams, these sorts of losses can take you out of Tier 1 contention or Division 1 contention. So yeah, make sure you take your placement matches seriously and you win, and you go follow the Collegiate Exclusive Podcast on Spotify and YouTube. If you enjoy the content, we are on my channel on YouTube, Mr. Bepic, and we're the Collegiate Exclusive Podcast on Spotify. Go right now, if you got it, to Spotify, find us, follow, and drop a 5-star rating. I assume it does good things. But TJ, as always, fun show with you. I'll see you next week. You got any final words before I throw? I feel like I've been talking for too long.
No, my power ranking tweet goes out in about 5 minutes.
We'll follow TJ too.
I'm gonna work with. There's a few. Oh yeah, of course. No, follow Bepic. Don't follow me. No, there is a few teams I'm gonna actually include as the schools receiving votes outside of my top 32. So I'm gonna try and find some sleeper rosters before I get this tweet out, and then I'm gonna get my power rankings out. Also sign with KCP, sign with Kansas City Pioneers.
Yeah.
Today. So thank you all for the love that you've shown me today. I think I've gotten about 20 to 30 DMs today about that and my plans for the scene. I promise you guys I'm doing everything I can. My DMs and my schedule is swarmed right now, not to mention coaching a top 3 team in the nation right now, but also trying to run DreamHack, trying to help with Scenic, trying to run BBB, and I'm running 4 lands on campus with Concord this year. So please, please, please reach out to me. Let's have conversations, but don't get mad at me if I don't respond in 24 hours. So that's all I got.
Don't get mad at your tournament organizers. That's just a general rule of thumb that you should all follow. But yeah, that does it for the Collegiate Exclusive Podcast. I'm going to show off Wednesday Night Lights real fast because we got a pretty good night coming up. As it's a stacked evening, graphics cut off, whatever. It's my podcast. We can show whatever we want, however we want. Shawnee State versus James Madison happening in 12 minutes time. Make sure you stick around the Mr. Bepic stream, and importantly, you follow everybody involved in the collegiate space, prop each other up, support Collegiate Rocket League, watch Michigan State versus Boise State, and then San Diego State versus WCTC. Much love, everyone. I'm going to my break screen. That was another episode. Hope you all enjoyed. I'll see you for Wednesday Night Lights.